East, even in India, people have kind of just ignored this issue that now we're going to make computers and software and improve our standard of living, so forth and so on. But the Vedic culture really is a culture which was systematically organized by the rishis and sages, systematically and scientifically and practically organized to do two things: to address and acquire the needs of the temporary material body. At the same time, the priority was, but more important than that, is that you address the needs of the person within the body, the Kshetrajna, the knower of the body. That is the purpose for making life materially easy and simple. Don't do things which are unnecessary. It's called anartha. Anartha means unnecessary or meaningless things, like people are smoking. This is meaningless. This is an unnecessary. This is an anartha. People are drinking. People are doing so many things. Some things we can't mention here. And in this way, they're misusing this opportunity. Because according to Vedic culture, life is not haphazard. We didn't just say, here I am. Anywhere you go, when the cop stops you, he says, so where's your driver's license? Where's your registration? Where you come from? Where you going? You say, I don't know. They have to take you down, right? You have to know where you came from, where you're going, what your name is, where your registration, and so forth and so on. Everything is required. So in the ultimate issue, we should want to know, before this, where was I? Before I dropped out of the womb of my mother, where was I? Was I simply out of a vapor I came into being? And when my body is worn out, unworkable, and I have to give it up, then what? Will I just become a zero? Or will that spark of living force continue? And how will it continue, under which circumstances? Just like when the electricity is here now, if I throw the switch, it doesn't mean the electricity is finished. It is shifted to another locale. It is perpetually cycling. It is coming from the powerhouse and returning. If in the mundane, mundane material world, these principles are so exacting, then in the living world, or the conscious world, these principles hold even more so. And that's where I kind of got away from the illusion part. Maya. Maya means to accept something false as real. And in Sanskrit, the word real means permanent, sat. In fact, the English word satisfied is a derivative of Sanskrit. Sat means eternal, permanent. It doesn't begin, doesn't end. It's perpetual. So to be satisfied means to be permeated, like electrified. So it means having a feeling of, I'm just glad to be alive. We've seen people say that after their house burned down or they had a horrible accident. Yeah, I'm just glad to be alive. Yeah, I know my house is going to burn, but I'm glad to be alive. That is a glimmer of an expression of the feeling of sat, which is the quality of that living force. Sat. It's sat. It has never been, how do you say, created like Jobs created the Mac. No, It's always been, always will be. And when the Sat, or the ever-living, joyful, living entity, embraces this material world and identifies with it in terms of the body which she develops, that's Maya. It's sort of like you've either been to a costume ball or seen movies of where they have a scene where everyone's in a fantastic costume, no one can recognize anyone, and everyone's trying to figure out where the good guy and the bad guys are, and they're going around. So they're so covered, completely costumed, that you can't tell who that is unless they start speaking. Then maybe you can, oh, well, that's John. You know. So similarly, oh yes.
I was just wondering if we could take some questions.
Yes, we can.
Because we have about 15 more minutes.
I'm your servant. Yes, sir.
At the beginning of your lecture, you said something that's of interest to our class. You mean that you differentiate.
Can you speak up? I can't hear.
You differentiate between religion and knowledge that we get from elsewhere. And you said something about other types of knowledge are based on logic and reason. I wonder if you could make that argument a little more explicit, and here is the question. I see you in front of me and I believe you're there. I believe you're here lecturing.
Right.
But I cannot give you any rationale for why I see this. No more than a person who believes in God can give you a rationale why they believe in God. So what makes the difference between my seeing you, this seeing you in front of me be right, even though it's not supported by logic, and somebody who believes in God be wrong because he can't support with rationale or logic?
We may, that's a good question. We may believe a thing, not believe it. We may doubt, just like you say, you're standing in front of me and it appears that you are, but how do I know? Well, the very fact that you're asking the question confirms that I am standing in front of you, otherwise you wouldn't be asking it. But at any rate, your question is very important in this sense, that actually, in this world, everything we see is dependent on something else. Just like we see the moon at night. But we only see it because the sun reflects from it. If the sun were not reflecting on it, we wouldn't see it. And generally in the daytime we can't see the moon even though it's in the sky. Sometimes we do, but we don't see the stars. So this is the world of appearances. And the whole aim of the Vedic knowledge is to train the student how to, differentiate between that which is temporary, means it is created, it grows, produces some offspring, stays for some time, dwindles, and vanishes, never to be seen again. That's Asat, or Maya. And Sat, that which is ever existing. It never begins, never ends. And that training brings the person to realize his own, substantial spiritual existence. He must, in other words, instead of me telling you, it is a process that is offered. If you follow it, then you are the one that will determine the conclusion that yes, I exist. You will realize it. It is not a mental intellectual. It is a process very much like, I'll get you right, very much like ordinary education. The children are brought to school. Every one of us went through this, I know.
So what is the role of logic in differentiating between appearances and that which is real? That's what the question is.
You can't. You have to undergo the process. Just like children, when they first come to school, the teacher says, okay, we're going to learn ABC. Everyone say A. They say A. They don't know, what is this? But because the teacher is an authority, gradually she takes the students through a process where they learn A, B, C, D, E, F, G, HIJK, then she goes, okay, now today we're going to